everybody. Welcome back to the Search Economy Podcast. When we started this, I was thinking about a short list of people that I wanted to chat with based on just years past, talking about SEO, search, and this is actually the second different podcast that I have had a conversation with today's guest, Viola, who is the founder at Flow Agency. She posted something, which I follow her on LinkedIn and kind of eat up what she posts, great nuggets, but she posted something a few weeks ago, and I bookmarked it, and I was like, this would be a fun topic to dig into. So we're going to be talking about the power of a well-recognized brand in the search economy. But without further ado, Viola, welcome. How are you?
I am great today. Thank you, Brett, for having me calling in from Berlin, where it's a lovely, hot summer day and having a really good time.
I love having the international podcasts in action. We were chatting before I hit record, and maybe before we just dive into the topic, maybe talk a little bit about Flow. And I know you did a little bit of a brand refresh, so maybe talk about that. And then if you want to share anything from a SEO perspective there, it might be a good launching off point.
Great, I would love to. So my agency up until last month was called Flow SEO because we were founded out of my expertise and experience in SEO. I love flow state, so that feeling of being in the zone. Some people call it like deep work. It's like being deeply immersed in activities. So kind of like time passes by quickly. You often lose track of where you are, and you're just so loving the process. So that's kind of like the flow state, and that phenomenon has really inspired me. I followed Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's research. I followed some more modern research from like Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel, and so I don't consider myself very talented with branding, but flow SEO, that was just love at first sight. I love the concept of flow states. I love the fact how flow SEO rhymes. I very consciously named the agency Flow SEO because I had previously worked at an agency where we were set out to do SEO, but we ended up doing a lot of things. Ads, analytics, CRO, and that kind of like made it very hectic in the service delivery part. So when I started Flow SEO, I'm like, I'm going to put SEO into the brand name to limit my own mind and shiny object syndrome into SEO only. And this has done really, really well for us. And we've really focused on SEO and content strategy, and first and foremost have done that. Though over the last 2 years, more and more people have started asking us, but what about Google ads? What about Microsoft ads? What about LinkedIn ads? And so slowly we have started to build a performance marketing team. And we now probably make 25-30% of our revenue from performance marketing, but we've never been public about it. So our existing clients now, get ad services from us, but the world didn't know about it. And especially this summer, we've been requested several times for ads only. And I had to start every sales call with, yeah, we call Flow SEO, but we also do ads and we have a rebrand coming out. And it was just a really awkward way to start a sales conversation. So I started looking for new brand names. I did want to stay with Flow because, again, I love the concept. And it was very difficult. Flow marketing, Flow agency. Firstly, all domains were taken. I ended up being able to buy flow-agency.com for I think about 5,000 from a domain vendor, but it was a hustle. So firstly, the domains were not available. All the variations were not available. We did like Flow 1, Flow 4, and then like we got all these weird businesses and things we didn't want to get associated with. So we are like, okay, let's just do Flow Agency, but call ourselves Flow. So then I started writing on conference badges, Flow. But then people are you Flow the magazine? Are you Flow the period app? And we're like, okay, we got to be literal. So we are Flow Agency. And the problem now is there's a lot of Flow agencies. So when you type Flow Agency in search, there's a lot of them there. A lot of them are small, very, not aligned. A lot of them don't seem very strong in their online presence. No one has a strong YouTube. No one has a strong LinkedIn. No one has a strong Google presence, but they're there. So we've changed our domain about 2 months ago, and now we're fighting basically to get back on page one. Flow SEO, we used to have everything, right? The Google Maps, the images, the listings, the site links, the ad. Like when you would type Flow SEO, you could not. It was only us. Now that we're fighting for a flow agency, it's getting more difficult. Like now we have one organic result. We have our YouTube channel and our ad. But I still saw a friend click the wrong flow agency when she was sharing her screen last week. So we'll talk about alignment and brand presence and what that means in search. But I think people often take it as a given that you're going to be found for your brand name. Well, if there's a lot of other folks that have the same brand name, it's not a given as much. Or if you have a brand name that has a lot of several other meanings, you might also have a hard time. So examples of that, Beekeeper, Validity, that were two of our clients, but also companies like Lighthouse, Greenhouse, etc. These have very hard time in search because of the mixed search intent, and it's not quite clear what people are looking for. And they actually have a really, really hard time dominating page one for their brand term. There was a movie called The Beekeeper with Jason Statham late last year that took over all of page one, and our client Beekeeper, the employee app, was not stoked about it. So a lot going on with branding and search, and I'll stop here, but this is the long story short. Flow SEO is now Flow Agency. We're working on being ever present on page one, and we now do performance marketing as well.
Naming is challenging, and maybe we can do a whole nother episode on the SEO to PPC component and having conversations with customers and where they fall in their journey and what they need first in different situations. I feel like that's something we're working through. So that would be an interesting topic, but maybe I think that provides a really good backdrop for the conversation, which I'm excited to dig into. Maybe starting here, I think discussion, when I read the post, like one of the things that washed over me was this mentality of like, we started thinking about SEO from just a keywords first perspective, and thinking about how driving keywords help drive your position on Google. From what I've gathered and just maybe what you've shared here in your post, things might be changing a little bit. What do you think we need to think about outside of just the keywords in terms of trying to appease Google and what they're looking for today?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think keywords and rankings of keywords have changed dramatically. Google is getting a lot of better at understanding search intent and what certain search queries and keywords mean. So 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it didn't necessarily understand that apple pie recipe and recipe for apple pie and best apple pie recipe all had the same search intent, and that these people want to find a recipe. And so you had a very SEO approach where you try to hit every keyword variation. Every keyword variation has a page, etc., and you're putting a lot of stuff out there. Now Google is getting smarter and smarter and smarter. It understands variations, synonyms, context. If you optimize one page well, it can rank for hundreds of keywords. It's not just going to rank for your one main keyword, apple pie recipe. It's going to rank for everything and anything related to apple pie and apple pie recipe, maybe also difference between apple pie and apple cake and all those sorts of things. So Google got a lot smarter, which I think that's a relief, because it doesn't mean we need to dedicate an individual page to every single variation anymore. We can have good, original, insightful content, and it's going to rank for hundreds of keywords. At the same time, when a page ranks for hundreds of keywords, imagine you're winning 3 positions for apple pie recipe. You're going from 7 to 4. But recipe for apple pies goes from 5 to 8. So it lost 3 positions. So are we improving or are we not? Like, what are we really looking at? And so I think in most cases, I find looking at singular keywords, it's getting very, very granular, very, very specific, and might be distracting from the bigger picture. Now, the caveat is most businesses that I know, and we predominantly work B2B tech and B2B service providers, most businesses that I know have 5, 10, maybe 20 keywords that drive the majority of their revenue. So these are usually transactional keywords, bottom of funnel keywords. For these 5, 10, 20 breadwinner keywords, yes, I want to look at the individual keyword. I want to be aware of every change. I want to hyper focus on that. For most other keywords, I'm now mainly looking at topics. And I'm thinking, okay, this is the topic universe with all of the keywords that I want to be monitoring. This is the page associated with it. And is this page getting more impressions and more clicks? Great. Is this page not getting more impressions and more clicks? Not great. And so that has shifted a lot. And except for these very breadwinning, high converting top handful of keywords, I've really stopped looking at a lot of individual keywords, and I've stopped looking at a lot of individual rank tracking.
So we as marketers get stuck on the way things have always been, and no matter, even if the changes happen, we continue to keep pushing forward. And you're talking through this, and I'm thinking about keywords specifically, and then you talking through topics and how topics might be a better way to look at, improving your position. Do you believe based on that shift and maybe how you're communicating to your clients that there is an opportunity for brands to move into this new way of thinking about search from a topics perspective while their competitors still might be focused in on keywords specifically?
Definitely. And I think when I say topics, right, there's different ways you could call that. Some people say main keyword and supporting keywords. Some people say clusters. Some people talk pillars. Some people call it hubs. I think all of these things are trying to grapple with the same idea, which is kind of like, buckets of keywords that belong together. And when I say belong together, I mean they have the same search intent. They're slightly different, but people are trying to answer the same or same-ish question. And so a good way to know if several keywords belong together or not is you type them into Google and you see, hey, is page one more or less the same? Which if page one, if for two keywords, page one is more or less the same result, it indicates Google thinks these keywords have the same intent and it's serving the same results. And so, yes, I think there's a huge opportunity to think in topics. And then also thinking about what's kind of like the universe of topics that I want to be known for, and how are these going to support my most important transactional bottom of the funnel keywords, where I'm getting contact requests or downloads or demo requests, right? Like, how do my topics and my kind of like content universe support these key pages specifically, and how can I stay hyper focused like that? I think that's a lot more useful than getting very, very lost on individual um, keywords, yes or no.
So I don't want to bury the lead, and we'll just maybe jump right into it. Where I saw your post. You had posted based on an article you read on SparkToro, I believe that was research from Datos, and you talked about a trend and why it should matter to every brand online. We'll share the link to that article in the show notes, but maybe talk a little bit about that trend and why it should matter to any brand online.
Sure. I think the big question, or what a lot of people associate with SEO, right, is getting traffic to your own website. Like, often people talk about SEO or SEO content as if it's a type of content. Really, SEO is more like a distribution channel. And the study that Spectora and Datos did together, they did something similar a few years ago and they updated it now, which is the question is, what um, search engines and aggregators send the most traffic to websites? Now, you already might have a hunch about it, is because it's very hard to leave TikTok. If you're making a LinkedIn post and your LinkedIn post includes a link, you already probably noticed that your visibility drops. Instagram very famously only had the bio link for a long, long time. Now they have also the link in the stories. But so a lot of the platforms typically don't want you to leave the platform. If you're within YouTube, they want you to stay within YouTube and watch more videos. LinkedIn wants you to keep scrolling. And these platforms have an interest for that to be that way, because the longer you're on the platform, the more you engage, the more ads they can show you, the more revenue they're going to make. So, long story short, is the kind of tool that sends the most traffic to websites is still Google today. I think they found out that 63% of all web traffic to a website comes from Google. So Google is the largest traffic referrer. then followed by Bing, so kind of Microsoft, and then YouTube, and then it goes into Facebook, Reddit, and all the other ones. Now, obviously, the interesting thing from that is also people are still on Google, and people are still clicking links from Google, and people are still going to websites from Google. I think that's like good news and interesting news in a way. But it's also, I think, then the question is like, what does that mean for me as a marketer? And then thinking about, does that mean I should only be doing SEO in Google now and forget all the rest, forget my LinkedIn, forget my Instagram? And I think that would be a false way of reading into the data. And I like how Rand Fishkin, he made a follow-up post about this. He said the way to think about it is on the social media channels, on all the zero click platforms, on all the platforms that don't send out traffic, this is where people get informed. This is where people get ideas. And then they use Google and Bing to kind of find their way to the thing. And I feel that's a very accurate description. The data doesn't say, hey, 63% of all web traffic comes from Google. Hey, we should only do Google. It means let's do something that's worthwhile talking about so that then people start looking for either an idea, a concept, or your brand.
So I love that, and then I love the mentality of just using other channels to help build and elevate your brand, and not get so stuck on jamming links in there that the platforms probably will discount you a little bit on. Uh, but when we're thinking about, like, we spend, I mean, I look at your posts all the time. I post regular, just LinkedIn, we're posting a lot. You thinking about Twitter, think about Facebook, whatever channels you're using. In light of kind of the research and the news, how do you think about those brand building initiatives outside of, the content that is being clicked on from Google, like the other channels? Like, how do you think about it as the founder at Flow, and making sure that your initiatives are kind of on the right track?
Sure. I think for one, I mean, you got to make sure that I think there's a right channel or channels depending on what your business is, what your audience is, what the stage of your business is. You might be doing something else in your first 12 months than you might be doing after 10 years, after 15 years, after 20 years. I think there's a question of what is the type of marketing team and resources that you have? Do you have a sales team and resources or not? And out of that, I would say comes a probably pretty individual mix of channels that you want to be going after. I think for a long, long time, because I'm in the B2B context so much, people were really like search was very, very popular and important for B2B, maybe even like more than for B2C, when maybe B2C has moved much earlier into social media and Facebook ads and Instagram ads, especially for lifestyle products. But what we're seeing with LinkedIn and Twitter as well is that we have now B2B influencers, as you are, as I am probably. And people now also find ideas and inspiration on social. So what I really care about is what I said in the beginning is I want to make sure when people are ready to buy and try to find me, they can find me. This is why I care so much about the Flow agency ranking, because I almost never have a link or CTA in my LinkedIn posts. But that means when people do want to reach me and they're like, okay, she's cool, I like her stuff, I need some SEO services, I want them to type Flow agency and find us and not someone else's agency, because these people obviously are ready to buy. And so I care a lot about this, like very bottom of funnel branded search. I care a lot about, but I also care a lot about things, for example, in the software space, like comparisons. Like, so if people are like Asana versus Monday, Asana pricing, Asana discounts, like Asana challenges, like these types of stuff, like especially the very bottom of the funnel is great stuff for search, and I want to make sure that I'm super cleaned up and findable there. And then for the middle and top of funnel, I think we need to rethink it a little bit. I think with the AI overview that Google is introducing, the chatbot experience that Google is introducing, I think some of the kind of like very top of funnel, what is glossary type stuff is going to go away, because that's just, it was taken by the featured snippet for a long time. Now it's taken by new sub features. I think that's going to go away to the AI chatbot answers. And so, yeah, I'm trying to be very thoughtful, and I'm actually trying to work from the bottom of the funnel up when I think about our search strategies.
So we're gonna dive into some bullets you made from the post and unpack them a little bit. But something you said I think is really good for everyone, and I want to maybe dive into it a little deeper. You made mention that on your post on LinkedIn, you're not putting in links typically, and you just want, when people have a problem with SEO, they are seeing your post and they think of you, and then they go to Google and type in Flow Agency and find you. How do you, as marketers, we want to just like, we want attribution for everything. How do you like come from a place of abundance and just know that, like, if I'm consistently creating valuable content on all these channels where my potential customers are hanging out, eventually they'll come around when they have the problem to have a conversation
Sure.
with you? How have you kind of trained yourself to be okay with the way you're approaching it?
Totally, totally. I mean, so one thing you can tell here, uh, I'm a content marketer. I'm a content marketer by heart, right? And so I believe in content marketing. I believe in inbound marketing. And I think I'm lucky in the sense, I mean, I'm the founder of this agency, and the agency has grown off content marketing and inbound. We get a lot of referral, we get a lot of inbound. And so, in a way, I don't need to prove to myself that this is true, because we used to be one person 6 years ago and now we're 12. And so this is why I think I have a trust, because it's been happening every year and it keeps happening and again and again. And so this is not going to make, by the way, I love data. I spend all my days in spreadsheet and Looker Studio and Google Analytics and Ahrefs. So I'm like on the data side of things. But for my own business, I will say it's like, I think I've been very soft and patient and kind of like wanted it to organically grow. And I've just seen that it kind of like works. Even old clients, I think they'll just, even if they like me and us, they might just forget about us because I'm every week on their feed, though. They're like, oh, wait, I got this new job. Viola, I worked with her 2 years ago. She's always on my LinkedIn. So I use these channels to stay in touch, to generate touch points. And the only proof that I have is essentially our revenue and team growth that we had over the years. Um, what I now learned for our agency is actually that I do want to get a lot more analytical about it, because what we now notice is we're actually very, very good at content marketing and top of funnel, no surprise. But we need to get a lot better at middle of funnel lead nurturing and lead scoring. So I'm currently all in marketing sales operations, like in HubSpot and the workflows. And how do I make sure we reach out to the people that have been at 2 webinars? And how do I make sure I reach out to the people who comment on my LinkedIn all the time? It's like, we've never done that. We just put out content and then we waited for people to call us. So we have a huge missed opportunity in the middle of the funnel where we have all these fans and followers and we're not proactively talking to them. So that's something that I want to change right now.
I love it. I knew you were going to have some energy around that. And I sometimes, it's therapy. I need someone else to say it because I have these things going on in my brain. It's like, I'm okay doing it this way. It's okay. So in going back to the LinkedIn post, you write, the shift means you need to focus on brand building strategy that transcends traditional SEO. And then you give, here's 3 things you can do. So I want to spend some time maybe unpacking those 3 things. Starting with the first thing you say is elevate your brand across all of your web properties, examples, your own website, social profiles, review sites, forums, and user-generated content, as well as outlets and publishers. So how do you recommend consulting on, that's a lot, it can be a lot, what's like kind of the crawl walk run approach, and where were you thinking about
Absolutely.
as you wrote that?
So, the reason why I'm saying that also in the light of what's currently happening with ChatGPT, Perplexity AI, Gemini. I'm saying that in the light of Google implementing the AI overview, which is a chatbot experience on the top of Google search. And what all of these tools do is when they generate an answer, they don't just generate an answer based on one link, they generate an answer based on a variety of links. Some of these links will be your own website, and some of these links will not be your own website. And so, in an attempt to be presented in the modern search world, but also in the world of LLMs, you want to obviously you want to control how you talk about yourself, but you also want to have alignment with how other people talk about you. So the crawl version is the properties that you own is your own website, which means it's time for a content audit. If you changed your positioning from OKR software to performance management, if you changed from employee app to frontline success system, maybe it's time to clean out some of the old stuff and the old communication. Make sure that what you stand for, what you talk about, is like really clean and aligned and focused. So that's kind of like step one, crawl. You on your website, you can make changes to that. You can remove things, you can update it. That's 100% in your control. Similarly, also crawl stage is make sure your social media profiles are actually aligned. And I'm guilty of that too. I keep noticing that too. It's actually now with the rebrand, making sure our LinkedIn company page, our YouTube channel, our Twitter, do they all have the same handle, the same tagline? Do they have the same description? Is there an alignment in what it says about us? So that's, I would say, it's still on the crawl stage because again, you can just log in, you can, you can write one standard description and update it. And you will notice that if you ask ChatGPT or in the US, you're asking Google's AI overview about this, this is often the type of stuff that they're pulling from. They kind of like walk, I would say, as properties that you have less control over. So this goes directionally maybe also into your Crunch-based, TechCrunch, third-party reviews, like in the software space, that's G2, Capterra, TrustRadius. The reason why I say this is walk, it's very easy to change your category in your description. It's not as easy to change the actual reviews. And so people might be talking about old features or things that you don't have anymore about things differently than what you thought, what you stand for. So this is, I think, why we're at the kind of like more advanced stage here. And then in the run stage, I think when we have mastered that, this is when SEO really starts linking up with your PR team. So this means that founders on a podcast, we're being mentioned in media outlets, news sites, in the press, etc. And again, the reason why we want that alignment is we want to strengthen the brand on every touch point. So it's a user experience benefit. If people feel like these guys are consistent, I know what they stand for, and they talk about that everywhere where I encounter them. But it also really helps with Google and large language models to understand who you are and what you stand for. Bonus point for the SEOs that are listening to this, if you then add good schema markup to your website to link these all up together, you're making it really easy for these algorithms to understand you.
This is good feedback. Schema markup is a topic of another conversation I'm having later today. So I love the fact that it's getting validated through your recommendation there. The second one, which to me was like over the last 3 years, maybe the most transformational uh, thing that I have spent more time on, and I love the call out, but you say consistently engage with your audience to boost brand recognition. Maybe talk about what you mean there and how you bring that to life.
So I think some people talk about, right, the attention economy, like the war of attention. Like it's so busy now. There's talking about software again. There's so many software, like there's like probably hundreds of project management softwares. And even if you only look at the top 10, well, there is a top 10. That's a lot of software tools to look at when you're trying to make a decision. LinkedIn got very crowded over the last years. There's a lot more people posting in there. So people talk about the attention economy, war of attention. I think what's happening the last 2 years is we're not only fighting over attention from our customers, we're actually also fighting for their trust because the public awareness of how much misinformation is on the internet, I think, is increasing rapidly. And Google has a problem with false information, as do most other platforms. And so I actually think a lot of it's not only fighting for their attention, you're fighting for their trust. And I think this got kind of like accelerated by the fact that no, all content production got 10x with AI. So the fight for attention is 10x, but the fight for trust is also 10x because we're like, I don't even know what I'm looking at here. Did Viola write this? Did ChatGPT write this? You're like, where is this coming from? And so that's what I'm saying is like, consistently engage with your audience is again, you want to be aligned. When they see you on YouTube, you want that to be cohesive with what's on your website. You want that to be cohesive with your ads and what's on LinkedIn. And that's incredibly difficult. Even being such a small team as ourselves, I acknowledge this is incredibly difficult because it's even, difficult for us as an agencies, let alone for our bigger clients with big marketing teams. Um, and then I'm a big advocate also for doing the things that are not scalable, which also means, for example, maybe you want to be the one responding to your comments, or you want someone real from the marketing team responding to comments, and you don't want to have the kind of like AI generated like bot running under all of your posts. Is Yes, we want attention, but I think attention is not enough anymore. We also need people to remember us, and we need people to trust us. Only when they remember us and trust us, they will then type Flow Agency in Google and hopefully click on the right link.
I love this. What this reminds me back to what we were talking about before of like letting go of like having attribution for everything. And I'm just curious on your end. Um, when you're like thinking about a platform like LinkedIn and thinking about just being a part of the conversation, do you look at even if it's not your own post, do you look at just the opportunity of commenting and getting involved in other types of posts that are adjacent to what you talk about to not only add value to the conversation, but ultimately, like if you comment and it's a profound comment that people find helpful, like that comment's going to be seen and Viola's face is going to be there and Flow Agency is going to be there. Like, do you think about that as well?
I like that a lot. I'm not spending enough time on this as I should be and want to be, but I like that a lot. I think this is a really good way to essentially piggyback on someone else's bigger audience. And if there's a good conversation somewhere, again, there's so much cookie cutter. We're going to talk about originality in a second, but there's so much cookie cutter, same copycat content out there that in that sea of sameness, when you're like the shining light of originality, whether that's in a comment or a blog post, it's like people do notice. And so I think commenting on other people's stuff, especially on LinkedIn, is a really, really good strategy. I'm not
Okay.
sure if on Instagram it's the same, for example, because comments don't get elevated in the same way. But the way LinkedIn, pushes comments into the feed, I think is a really good idea.
Totally. The last bullet you have, you say, innovate with your content to provide unique and valuable insights. We want all the content formats for search now: text, images, videos. What do you mean there?
So I think for a long, long time we thought the classic kind of like organic blue link was kind of like the success metric that we want with SEO, and I don't think that's necessarily true anymore in the sense that not every search query needs text. If I'm typing how to tie my tie, if I'm like how to do up my hair for a wedding, I'm gonna get videos anyway. If I type in Britney Spears, I'm gonna get a video. So talking again about search intent, content is not always the best answer to search intent. So thinking about what is the search intent here, what are people trying to do, and then a video or an image might be the better answer. And then the other thing that I'm really trying to do for my clients and also is for their top keywords. Again, these are the breadwinners, most important keywords. You want to be there basically everywhere. You want to be in the ads. You want to have an organic link. You want to be in the images. You want to be ideally with a video of sorts. And so that's where I'm like currently trying to get people to think about is we want to be omnipresent, especially that search is now also becoming more and more zero click. We haven't even talked about this yet. The more AI overviews we're going to have on top of Google search, I think the more zero click behavior we're going to see in Google as well. But especially then, you still want to be present and you kind of want to have that feeling like these are the only ones to choose. If you're typing anything related to email marketing software or email marketing tools, MailChimp is everywhere. You know, they're in the little recommended software box and they have a cute, they're the only ones who have a yellow background on their logo. It's very smart. Everyone has a transparent background and then a very slim logo. They are like bright yellow there. So they're there, they're in the ads, they're in the knowledge panel. Whether you like MailChimp or not, for most people, MailChimp is going to make it onto the consideration set of software tools just because they're everywhere. So that's the first thing: is not every search query deserves a text answer. And then secondly, you want to be everywhere in search, not just a classic organic blue link.
Great feedback, great advice. I always think when we're talking about big topics like this, it's always good to like highlight what are the things that begin to happen when the things that we are doing start working. So, just from a Google perspective, when Google starts recognizing, our brand as the leader, what are maybe some signals and things that start taking shape where we know what we're doing is on the right track?
Sure, sure. I think there's a lot of things to notice. Is Google will crawl your website more often. When you publish a new article, Google will crawl it probably the day or 2 days after. Google might rank you very fast instead of having to wait, 2 weeks for it to get indexed and 3 months for it to rank. It might get indexed and start ranking in a week. And so, just the momentum that you build, I like to think about SEO very much as a snowball, where in the beginning, if you're on the top of a hill, you're rolling the snowball. It's very, very tiny. You're like struggling it down, but the more it's rolling down the hill, the bigger the snowball, the bigger and bigger. And SEO and Google is very much a momentum game. So you'll start your article getting picked up much faster. You will see them ranking much faster. You will see that old stuff all of a sudden, starts getting momentum again and uplift again. And so I definitely think there's sometimes discussion. Is there a ceiling to this? I think to a degree, yes, because there, as within what is your topical relevance. But there is a good sweet spot. Like once you have momentum with SEO, where stuff just gets picked up very, very quickly, and then that myth of I need to wait a year for my SEO that's then like that's all in the past. Then you're like, all right, I'm gonna know in 2 weeks if this thing is working or not.
So if things don't start working or happening at the rate we want them, like what should our next plan of attack be, and maybe like what is that time frame that we should be evaluating against?
So about SEO specifically, I like to think always about kind of like input metrics, progress metrics, and success metrics. So we just talked about success metrics, where pages just get picked up, they start ranking, and they start getting traffic. Ideally, this traffic converts. That's success metrics. That's kind of the end of the journey. In the beginning are kind of like input metrics, which is what are the things that we can control. So how many pages are we writing? How many backlinks are we, building or naturally getting? How many technical fixes are we doing? And so the first question would be, do I have a deficiency in my input metrics? So for example, you can use Screaming Frog and SEO Crawler, and you can crawl, your top 5 competitors, and you can crawl the publishing date, and that will give you a ballpark figure of how much content are these people putting out there. Ahrefs has a feature where you can see organic pages over time. Same thing, you get a ballpark figure, like how much content are these people putting out there. Again, Ahrefs, SEMrush, you can see how much backlinks our website's getting. So the first question is, am I competitive with my input metrics? Or am I just banging my head against the wall, publishing one blog post a month? And, Asana is out there putting out 20 a month. So, that might be hard. And so that's the first question, like the things that we can control: input metrics, content, backlinks, and technical fixes. And then progress metrics, I would want to see that pretty quickly, is a growth of impressions, growth of number of keywords indexed, growth in positions of these. And again, it's not so much that I care about what is one individual keyword and then does it move from position 7 to 4. Like I said in the beginning, I think that's way too granular, but directionally. Am I now indexed for 10,000 keywords, 20,000 keywords? Do I have 20 keywords on page 1 or 200 or 500? Like, again, don't get too lost on each individual keyword. It's more like directionally, are these numbers going up? And I would want to see that quite quickly.
Okay, so we just talked about plan B. Now, I think I was most interested in this conversation from you is there's all these changes constantly in everything we do in marketing, and obviously Google is changing rapidly as always. And sometimes, as the individuals who are doing the work, we need to explain ourselves to internal teams on why our behaviors or our tactics or things that we're working on has shifted. Can be actually probably the most challenging parts of our job. So based on these changes and what we've talked about today, maybe what's the best way that you've found to position these changes with internally with your team and existing stakeholders?
Great question. So, as an agency and as I think about our consulting work, I would actually say communicating to executives, getting buy in, aligning teams is one of the main jobs that we do. I mean, yes, we do keyword research. Yes, we do content audits. But if you don't just want them to kind of like, end on file, then I think that communication is the most important thing. I think Google has been pretty wild the last 2 years between all the changes with AI generated content, between people exploiting AI generated content, between in March 2024, Google punishing the people who are exploiting AI generated content, between the antitrust case that they just lost, between them introducing the AI chatbot experience, between ChatGPT supposedly being our new favorite, search tool, etc. I think there's a lot going on, more than usual. I would say there's more than usual going on with. There's a lot more changing. There's a lot more uncertainty than I would say typically with Google. I know that there've always been good changes to the Google algorithm, and some of them been brutal. But essentially, if you were writing good quality content, if you're getting good links, like you generally were able to do fine in Google. And so, what I've been trying to do with my team is try to over communicate. So, with when Google announced the AI overview, I immediately did a briefing with our entire team and all the clients. When they soft launched it in the US, again, we kind of like announced it, talked through it with all of our clients. Because what my goal is, I want to control the narrative. I want them to hear from me what's changing, and I want them to hear from me how they should think about it. I don't want them to learn from Neil Patel. I don't want them to learn from another person on LinkedIn. I want them to hear it from me. And so that's why I'm trying to be fast in my communication and have kind of like briefings ready. And the way I try to structure these briefings is this is what's happening. This is how it affects us. This is what we're doing. Which, to be honest, that's every executive briefing. It's always like that. It's like, right? What do we do? What are we learning? What's working? What's not working? What is the opportunity? What's the roadblock? What are we doing? So I'm trying to be very, very clear on that. But I think, especially right now, it's difficult because I find the news are all not good. At least, organic click through rate is probably going to go down with a huge AI overview on the top. Zero click searches probably increasing. And we can see that with our clients. Impressions are going through the roof and clicks stay kind of stable. A lot of new SERP features taking up a lot of real estate, a lot more ads. Ads are more expensive than ever before. And so a lot of the news are not very good. And same here. I'm trying to say that early. And so ever since Google announced the AI overview last year, I've been telling people like, yeah, we will probably get problems from this. And so maybe that's me being German, that I'm just out there saying, we're going to have a problem. We're going to drop in traffic. But in a way, I'm trying to communicate that early so that when it happens, people are not surprised. Like that's almost my worst case is when something happens to a client site and they're like, why didn't you tell me about this? Why didn't you warn us? Like that's the worst thing that could happen to us. So I'm trying to, as early as possible, say, this is what's happening, this is how it might affect us, and this is how we're working towards mitigating that risk. And especially now I've been telling the people some keywords and rankings might be lost for good. There's some that you might have been losing in everything that's been going on over the last 2 years that you can win back. But some of them are just lost for good with everything what's changing. And that means we have to find, new topics, new keywords, new things. We lost as an agency. We used to rank position 1 for B2B marketing examples. If you now type B2B marketing examples, comes a new SERP feature, which is a panel that says email marketing, video. It's so big, it takes up the entire screen. Even if we were back in position 1, we would not get a click because the thing is so huge. And so we just talked with our marketing team. It's like, okay, B2B marketing example, I think that's gone for good. I think I'm not even going to put effort into trying to win back that topic because I just don't see. And so, yeah, try to communicate early and try to tie everything. This is what happens. This is how it affects us. This is what we're doing. Because if you only say this is what happens, people are going to come to their own conclusion and they might not be the conclusions that you want them to have. And if you don't have a roadmap, that's going to make your executives very nervous because it kind of feels like you're just sitting there and letting a storm happen to you. And so you always want to have these three parts in your kind of like communication.
I'm having to refrain myself from not like getting into the weeds on this because I think this could be a whole nother episode, and maybe we'll do it at some point. I think this is a very interesting topic. But before I let you go, Viola, I'd love to maybe, if you have any just examples that you of clients or individuals that you've worked with that have maybe you've communicated these changes and they've taken these changes seriously, and now they're seeing great results based on the new world. I'd love to hear from them about them.
Totally. I mean, we work with one client, BetterWorks. It's a performance management software. And I think we have achieved a few things for them that I really, really liked. One thing is when Google rolled out the beta version of the AI overview last year and you would type in their brand name, it would return BetterWorks is a human capital management software. But they are not. They're performance management software. And before that, they were an OKR software. So we figured out why does the AI overview return it in that way? And we noticed it was an underlying SEO article from a company called Tech Target. That's essentially a massive SEO site with reviews and different things. And they had an article, What is BetterWorks? And it took a long, long time and a lot of outreach to the editors of this website to get them to change their article. But they finally did. I think it took like 6 months. They changed the article, and within a week, the AI overview would describe them accurately as BetterWorks performance management solution. Da, da, da. It was all correct. So that's one way I was proud, like very bottom of funnel. But also, what we've been working on with them is including a lot more originality and thought leadership into our SEO pieces. So one example that we revamped, they used to have a piece about performance improvement plans. And it was the kind of classic SEO. What is performance improvement plans? How to implement performance improvement plans, best practices. Except that the CEO doesn't believe in performance improvement plans and is all over the press and media saying how he doesn't believe in it. And so we then rewrote the article saying performance improvement plans and why they don't work and what to do instead. That's now ranking super well and getting a lot more traffic than before. The team started to release short YouTube videos because we're seeing, again, videos used to be very B2C, but I see it in B2B and B2B tech now a lot. So when you type performance management best practices, there's actually now videos in Google search. So we started releasing videos about that, still looking how it goes. But that's a team that I found very interested in the changes, and where we're like consistently working and getting better, including originality, including multimedia. And so it's like we're still learning. If you go to the website, you'll still find some stuff where you're like, oh, they're not doing it in this article. So it's not every single article. But I feel like that's a team that I'm very proud of and that I really love working with, and we've changed dramatically over the last 2 years. Also want to give a shout out to RepCap and Mary Ellen and her team, who are the content marketing agency, and she's also my good friend on the client and on the project. And that's been a super cool collaboration between her team, the client team, and us.
Such a fun conversation. So many nuggets and insights. It will be easy to pull clips from this episode, and can't wait to share it out. Viola, founder at Flow Agency. Like I mentioned, there's a lot that we have. I think we could dig into deeper. So maybe we'll have to do that on a future episode. Thank you so much for your time and insights.
Bert, always love chatting about SEO with you and the world of marketing and how it's changing. Thank you so much for having me.